What you see on your screen is every game down the stretch these past 4 weeks. I have given my prediction as to who I think will win each game. I entered it in the ESPN playoff machine, which is, always a fun tool. You can check that out if you search ESPN playoff machine. This is not sponsored or anything like that, just, a fun thing to do. And I figured, okay, well, let's see who I have making the playoffs. So first, let's start off with the AFC here. The 7 teams I have making the playoffs. I still have Kansas City as the 1 seed, but again, worth noting, they are just barely the 1 seed. I have Cincinnati beating Buffalo, which means that they would be the 2 seed in this scenario because they win that game and then have the tiebreaker. But it is very much worth mentioning, all Kansas City has to do is lose 1 football game in this scenario for them to fall out of the 1 seed. And this is also where things get a little bit interesting with, in doing this, it's like, okay, I have the Kansas City Chiefs projected to win each of their next 4 games, but do I think they'll win 4 in a row? I don't know. That's where things get tough, especially, but that's the case with all of the teams that I have going 4-0 down the stretch. So it's interesting, but that's how I have 1 through 3. Again, I still do have the Titans, who, you could talk about Jacksonville maybe sneaking up in there. I don't know. I still think the Titans are a better team. I still think the Titans are the ones that end up in that 4 seed, but maybe I'm too low on the Jaguars. I don't know. The Dolphins I have as the 5 seed in this scenario, and then the Ravens and the Jets are seeds 6 and seeds 7. Again, a little surprised by the Ravens, who, I very much could have, I think some people would say, are they going to be in danger of falling out of the playoffs? I don't know. I think their record's good enough. I still have them going 2-2 down the stretch. So I think that they still probably do end up making the playoffs here. Even if they lose a game, they're still okay. That 1-3, I think would still be enough for them to get into the playoffs. In fact, I have it set up that even if they go 0-4, if everything else plays out the way I think it will, they're still a 6 seed there. So there you go. Not the worst spot to be in. As for the rest of the AFC now, so we have the going just division by division. First, the AFC East, you have the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins all making the playoffs. Jets are not in bold there, but they are the 7 seed. The playoff machine still hasn't updated a 7th team making the playoffs, so that's why they're not in bold, but they will also be a playoff team there. You then have the Patriots, who I have just a game out, and if the Jets lose 1 more game, then I have them losing. If they go 1-3 down the stretch instead of 2-2, that means that the Patriots would actually beat a team that's on the doorstep, so there you go. It's possible. AFC West here. Again, nothing too crazy. The Chargers still have a chance. Definitely still have a chance. The Chargers do. Raiders and Denver do not. AFC North. Cleveland is another team that is very fascinating to play out. Cleveland is a team that has a chance to make the playoffs. I have them winning some games. I have them losing to Washington week 17, but even if they win that game and everything else holds, that would still not be quite enough. They would need to win that game, have everything else hold, and they would need another Jets loss that I don't have on there to make it. So seems unlikely, but it's definitely not out of the question. Crazier things have happened for sure. Pittsburgh will not make the playoffs unless they win out. Then they have a chance. The AFC South is another division where, I have the Jaguars losing a bunch. Maybe that's unfair because they have looked very inconsistent. But at the same time, I know it sounds harsh, but they play Dallas next week, and then they play the Jets the week after. That's going to be tough. I do have them beating the Texans, actually, week 17, so I don't have them losing out, but I have them losing 3 out of 4. I have them losing to the Titans week 18 as well. Hey, they just beat the Titans. Maybe that's unfair, but even if they win, they got a lot more catching up to do to get in. Although, hey, go on a run, go 4-0, that probably would be enough to make the playoffs, but that's where I have them currently here. Heading over to the NFC, it's very fascinating here as well. The Eagles actually have a chance to clinch the 1 seed next week, which seems crazy to think about, but yeah, they do. They're, very good. I still have the Eagles, Vikings, and 49ers winning out from here on out. Who knows what can happen, but that is what I am projecting to happen. Although 1 more Vikings loss, they would fall to the 3 seed instead of the 2 seed. Niners have looked very good with Brock Purdy, so seems like this seems to be the case. Seems like Eagles will be the 1 seed, and then either Vikings 2 seed and 49ers 3 seed, or vice versa, but those two as the 2 and 3 seed. And I still have Tampa Bay as the 4 seed. Now, what's interesting, the way I have everything set up is that currently, we'll get more into it when we get to the whole every team and all that stuff, but what's fascinating about the Buccaneers is that they really are hanging on by a thread. If one game goes differently, they could potentially be in trouble. So, tough spot, but I still have them going 9-8, which is what I had them going last week, and then making the playoffs at 9-8. Then for the playoff teams, you're going to see one team that's going to be very fun to see. I have Dallas as the 5 seed, which that's not the fun one. That's just expected. I'm almost convinced they're going to be the 5 seed unless they can catch Philadelphia. Detroit as the 6 seed and Washington as the 7 seed. Yes, Detroit was the fun team. That's what I mentioned. I do think Detroit's in a good spot. They play Green Bay week 18. Green Bay, will probably be phoning it in at that point, I would assume. They play the Bears week 17. They play the Panthers week 16. So I have them winning all 3 of those games. And I even have them beating the Jets in week 15. Now, they don't have to win that game. I still would have them in the playoffs at 9-8 if they lose to the Jets, but, that could go a long way if they could get that victory. And yes, I have Washington in here as well. Although, if they lose to the Giants next week, then that would be enough for me to not have them in there. Although worth noting, if they lose another one of the games I have them winning, they would still be in there, which I only have them winning one other game. That'd be against the Browns. So as long as they just win those 2 games, they should be enough. That should be enough for them to get in. Now going over here to the rest of the NFC, a lot to talk about. So yes, as I mentioned, I have them as just a win behind the Washington football team, which for Washington, they are, again, they play each other week 15. So that's the game that could very well decide who gets the 7 seed, I would think. Probably will decide who gets the 7 seed. In the NFC West, you have, Seattle, who feels harsh, but I do have Seattle dropping out of a postseason berth. I mean, this is a tough loss for them, and they haven't looked great, these past few weeks. They really haven't. And not just that, but the way I have it set up, even if they flip one of the games, like let's say they beat the 49ers next week, which I have them currently losing to, that still would be in a situation where that's not enough. They need to flip multiple games to have it happen, which, is especially tough given what their schedule is. They play the 49ers, they play the Chiefs, they play the Jets, and then they end the season against the Rams, but I have them winning that game. So they'd probably have to go 2-1 against the Chiefs, Jets, and 49ers. I think 1-2 feels optimistic for them. So I don't know. I don't think they're going to make it. I really don't. In the NFC North, again, talked about Minnesota and Detroit already. I think we know Green Bay and Chicago. That seems like a long shot for those 2 teams. For the NFC South, this is where things get very interesting because the way I have it currently set up, I have Tampa Bay winning by 2 games, which feels like a sizable lead, but it absolutely is not because Carolina plays Tampa Bay week 17. And if Carolina wins that game, they would also get the tiebreaker head-to-head, so both teams would be 8-9. The Panthers would get in that circumstance, so it would really be hanging on by a thread. Now, for Atlanta, I do have this as more than just a couple game leads, so this is an issue for the Falcons, as they'd have some catching up to do for sure. The way I currently have it set up is that for the Falcons, they would actually need to, if everything else holds, they'd actually need to win out to get into the playoffs, which seems tough for them to pull off. I think the reality is they're probably not going to do that, which means that I do not think the Falcons will end up making the playoffs. But again, the other solution would be maybe Tampa Bay drops another game that I have them winning, which totally feels possible because they've been doing that a lot this season. So if Tampa Bay loses to Arizona, for example, and then you get to a situation where you can beat them week 18. Don't think you're going to get in if you don't beat them week 18. But if you were to get in that situation where Tampa Bay drops one more, and then you can gain one more, that's also a way that they can get in. But they're going to have something like that to happen. They're going to have multiple things go their way. So the reality is I do think that Tampa Bay is a team that I think will make the playoffs. I could see Carolina doing it. Don't really see New Orleans doing it. It's possible, but I think they're too far back. But yeah, that's what I think about all the teams. That's where I have them. That's my predictions down the stretch. Always fun to do this. What do you guys think? Where do you disagree with me on? What's a team that you think I'm sleeping on? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.